Good afternoon and Assalamu alaikum. My name is Noor Iman and I'm from Team Fanneqalam. Today, our team members Kinza Atif, Aliba Bhatt, and Fatma Rahman will be interviewing a very renowned artist and activist of Pakistan. She is also the daughter of Faisal Faiz and has done a numerous amount of things for the women of Pakistan. Ma'am Salima Hashmi. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, all of you, and thank you for coming.
Welcome. How are you?
I am good, but these are not great times. We all have to have masks, and we have to be careful of the mosquitoes. So it's tough for everybody.
So our topic for today is how ignorance towards traditional arts impact our cultural identity. So first of all, I'd like to ask you, what do you think is culture and arts, and how do you define it?
Well, everything is culture. I always say that because sometimes people think, oh, only desi songs, or only lugdi, or only halwa puri. That's culture. No, the way that people live, the way that people talk, the songs they sing, the things they love to eat, the places they like to visit, the clothes they like to wear, the things they like to talk about when they're together, all of these things are a culture. Culture is not necessarily about the past, okay? So the things that are in the past are also our culture. But a culture is a constantly changing, dynamic thing, okay? People often say, ye cheez to hamara culture nahi, okay? But if you're doing it, then it's become your culture, okay? So in a sense, culture is the lived experience of a people. And you can't fake it. You can't pretend that something is your culture when you're not doing it, okay? So there's no zabardasti in culture. It's all natural. And it's terribly important because it tells you who you are, you know. And it's everything. It's the way that you look. It's the fact that you have your mother's eyes. It's the fact that it's your father looks like your younger brother, or your younger brother looks like your father. All of that is also part of our culture because it tells us who we are, what is our land, what is the land below our feet. Do we live in a cold climate, or do we live in a hot climate, or do we live in a climate that's both? Because it affects what we wear, you know. It affects the words in our language. जब हम कहते हैं कि बरसात का मौसम है, so we're talking about the rainy season, which happens here. People in England don't talk about that because it rains there all the time. So for them, barsat is not something special. So culture is who we are. It's our lived experience, and it tells us that this is our identity. Your identity is different to somebody living in Japan. Okay? That's because you're living in this soil. And therefore, it's a very important part of who we are. It's our recognition. It's like looking at our face in the mirror every morning. Okay? Our culture is like that.
So, as per the introduction said, you and also your late father, Faisal Faiz, have been had played a big role in the art history of Pakistan. Do you think that art somehow plays an important role in our cultural identity? And if you think that it does, you're an artist too, so how does that impact your personal work?
You can't really separate things. In our house, when I was a little girl, of course, my father was a poet, but he was not only a poet, he was a journalist. He was very interested in everyday events because he was heading a newspaper. So all the time, politicians, people would come and go. But also he was very great friends with artists. So on our walls there would be paintings. He would be great friends with musicians. So then the famous musicians of that time used to come to our house. Sometimes they used to come to my father to complain that Radio Pakistan was not playing their music. Sometimes they used to come and say, please give us a new poem so we can sing it. So there was this mixture of all these different art forms in our house. So I never really set out to be an artist in that sense. It came about kind of naturally because I like to draw. So my mother bought me a paint box. I also didn't like school, so I used to pretend that I was sick. And when I used to pretend that I was sick, I would stay at home and I would paint and draw and I would read storybooks. So that for me was heaven. So in a sense, these things kind of happened in the house. I do believe that not just one kind of art, every kind of art is important in our life because it makes life better. I remember once when I was studying in art college in England, I was in my first year and I was very scared and I'd never been out of Pakistan and anywhere and so on. So I remember, and our teacher was a very famous artist. He was very grumpy, and people used to be very scared of him. He was kind to me, but once he turned around to everybody and said, "Why are you studying art?" So everybody like froze. And then he said to me, "Why are you studying art?" And I didn't know what to say, and I said, "To make life better." He looked at me and he smiled and he said, "That's a wise head on young shoulders." And I didn't think of I was so scared, but I knew that art used to make life better. So whether it's music, when you're sad or when you're working and you would like some, or whether you hear some music and you want to dance, your feet start tapping, or if you want to see a movie, you know, because so and so is your favorite actor, or whatever. All of these things make life fun, livable, and not just that. My grandmother used to make wonderful khana, and she used to especially make one or two recipes which were from Afghanistan. My grandfather had spent many years in that, and she used to make a sweet which was called goshe feel. Goshe feel means the ear of an elephant, okay, and gosh is ear. So she used to make it. It was a kind of a crispy thing like this in a fan shape, just like an elephant ear, and it had syrup on top of it and some pistas and very crispy and delicious. When I think back and I think, very few people have heard of goshe feel, and I wonder how many people know how to make it. And I think, have we lost that part of our culture? So things disappear also. They disappear if you don't value them, if you don't preserve them, if you don't look after them. So it's important not just to enjoy what's happening now, but also think about, oh, what was there in my mother's grandfather's time? Are there any stories that I should know? Are there any songs or poems that I should know? So that they are not lost. It's important to save and to conserve what was there in the past. People say this, kya purani imarat hai, chalo, pull it down, let's have something new, let's have a mahal over here. The thing is, it's like cutting down a tree, you know. The culture and history is the roots, okay? The deeper they are, the bigger and more wonderful and stronger the tree is, and the more fruit it will give. It's the same with our tradition and culture. People said, why is it tradition so important? It is, it's like a tree. You have to go down, you have to have roots. If you don't have roots in the tree is not going to be, the plant is not going to be healthy. It's not going to flower, it's not going to, give you things that you enjoy today. So that's what culture is about, that's what identity is about. It's about our history, which we must preserve and we must learn about.
Since our topic includes the ignorance towards our culture and arts, so personally, I think that very rarely children these days are taking interest in the history of their country. So my question is that do you think that this culture is getting lost as generations are passing by?
Yes, our culture is getting lost. And you know why? Firstly, in school, we don't have history
Yes.
as a subject. If you look at social studies, it's got 2 pages on Mughal period, one period on Pathan period. So history has disappeared, and that's very deliberate. When I was at school, you had big fat history. Okay, you had a big fat geography book. I asked my first year students at BNU before that LNCA, so where is Uj Sharif? And everybody looks at me. And Uj Sharif has some of the most wonderful monuments in this country. How come you can get through school and you don't know anything about Uj Sharif? There's no geography taught about Pakistan. How are you supposed to know where Buzdar is and what's so special about Buzdar? How are you supposed to know, what the animals in Hunza are about if you haven't studied them? So, to know our country is terribly important. It has to come into the textbooks. First of all, not all the rubbish that you're taught to study, if I may say so. Okay? So, our own history, and our own history doesn't stop at the borders, it spreads over the whole region, because borders are new, they're only 70, 75 years old. Before that, it used to spread, grandfather served in Afghanistan, and somebody else's rishtedars came from Lucknow and so on. So all of these places, we can claim some part of it for our history. And it's important to know. I'm talking to you in English. Why? It's because the British ruled us for 200 years, But doesn't mean I shouldn't know Urdu. The thing is, Urdu also came from the other side of the border. It's not from here, It's as foreign as English is. Okay? But people don't think about that, because they haven't studied history. So, the right ignorance of what is our tradition and what is our culture is a very dangerous thing, Because pretty soon you find you won't have any roots, you won't have any, how to judge yourself, where to place yourself among all the peoples of the world. And the less you know and more ignorant you are, the more people can make fun of you and sort of say, where do you come from, And I think it's important to discover things that nobody else has discovered. Once one of my students told me that, there's if you go on the canal, quite far down, before you hit the end, there is a gate there with very, it's an iron gate, and I can see that there's long road, thin gully, and there are all these iron railings, and I keep wondering what's here. So I said, let's find out. So we went one day, there was a chowkidar. He said, can you open it? He said, we only open on Thursdays. So I said, but where does this go? So it goes to these tombs. So he said, can we go and see? So he said, okay. So we opened it. And we went through it, and it was an amazing experience. I, having lived in Lahore all my life, for 35, 40 years, I didn't know that there was this amazing complex of tombs together with a darbar. Why is it like this behind railings? Because the railway workshops were on both sides, and the British wanted to keep their railway workshops safe from the Indians, Muslims, who would be going to that darbar and to the shrine. And they didn't want any anti-British, types to be coming in. So that was the reason why they did that, and that's the reason that even today it's locked. And it's an amazing book. It's called Ali Mardan Shah. And if you get a chance, go there and see these wonderful tiled places. They're, big domes, wonderful tiles, and it's a tomb of Ali Mardan Shah. So there's lots to discover.
Yes.
We're a very rich country in that.
So I wanted to ask that I totally agree with you, sir. And I want to ask that we are also the younger generation, and there are younger generation, and there are also millions of millions of people in Pakistan. I want to ask what role younger generation can play to protect our culture.
People of my age love to give sermons to younger people and give nasihat, do this, do that. I usually don't do that. My own teacher the great poet Shakir Ali, said once, I never give nasihat to anybody because I never listen to what my father says. So I am not going to do the same to anybody else. So I try to not to do that. I feel that in every person there is a sensitivity. You do know right from wrong. And if you're aware that you've got something precious, which is your culture, you will find ways to preserve it. I remember when I was in college, at that time it was very fashionable to wear nylon and to wear imported things. And because I was at NCA, we always, of course, used to go against what everybody was saying. Na? So we said, we are not going to wear nylon. We are going to wear kanda. And we are not going to wear the imported shoes. We are going to wear kursas. So we were the first class and the first group of girls who started this whole thing that we're going to wear kursas, we're going to wear khaddar, we're only going to wear cotton. And at that time, Liberty Market was very new. And we went to Celine Fabrics, which was a very small shop there. And we said, we want something in cotton. He looked at cotton, nahi, mix hai. So we said, no, we don't want mix. We want pure cotton. So he didn't. Many, many years later, I went back to him and I said, you know, your old father used to be in the shop here. And I asked for cotton and he said, no, we don't keep cotton. Now look, we've got so much cotton. So, you know, people find ways of preserving their culture. This used to be a great cotton growing area. So we should wear cotton, you know, and it's the coolest, most comfortable material. So I feel that people of your age can discover ways of preserving your culture, doing things that nobody else would think, oh, you know, this is something special, you should do it, even if it's just a stitch, you know, particular embroidery stitch that your grandmother used to do and nobody else do. You can go back and see that dupatta and say, you know, I wonder if I can get this copy by somebody who can work like this.
It really hit me hard, and now I'm gonna remember and try to
Yes.
sure.
Absolutely. Each one of you can go on some kind of a journey and find something that you can discover and then save and then preserve. And that will be part of you and your culture.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Very welcome.
We won't be taking much of your time, so now we would like to conclude our session. We all had a marvelous time interviewing Salima, Hashmi, and now we would like to excuse ourselves. I hope that everyone here and whoever watches this gets the idea of how important our culture is to us, especially the younger generation. Thank you and Allah Hafiz.
Thank you all. Thank you for coming
Thank you so
and
much
taking
for
the time.